Well, the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria has once again retained the interest rate at 11.5% alongside other policy parameters. Well, there are also plans on the way to partner with the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 for the procurement as well as the distribution of COVID-19 vaccines.
So to help us make sense of the decisions taken by the Monetary Policy Committee is Professor Uche Uwaleke, Professor of Capital Market. Good evening and welcome to Newsnight.
Thank you very much for having me. Happy New Year, Maka. Good to see you.
So the committee has once again retained all the policy parameters after exploring. Yes, you said expectedly.
Yeah.
But there are people who are concerned that there are aspects of it that makes you think we could do a little bit better if only certain things were changed.
Yes, I start by saying that it's not for nothing that all 10 members, voted for, to maintain status quo. We had the same scenario during their last meeting, in November. 10 members were in attendance, and they also voted to, retain the rates. Okay, the same has happened now, and it's for obvious reasons. The CBN is battling, if you like, what you may call, a stagflation dilemma. The economy is in stagflation. We are not just witnessing economic recession. Some would argue, why not to reduce the rates? Okay, but we are witnessing stagflation. So on the one hand, you have rising inflation. Okay, on the other hand, you also have output contraction. So what do you do in the circumstance? Is to strike a balance, is to weigh the balance of risks. And the balance of risks, in my view, is in favor of a hold position. Because if you say because the economy is undergoing recession, you now reduce the rates. Okay, what about the rising inflation? What about the pressure on the exchange rate? Because if you reduce the rates, you trigger excess liquidity. The excess liquidity could also impact, demand for forex. So you now have exchange rate. The naira will, further depreciate. So the central bank is mindful of that.
Okay.
And if you also increase, because inflation is going up, and therefore you increase, what happens?
Especially since
the
spending power of Nigerians is quite limited.
So
let's talk about the fact that we are in a recession. The economy contrasted by 6.1%. And of course, the Minister of Finance had said she is optimistic by the end of the first quarter of 2021 that will be out of that recession. Are you still sharing in that optimism, one? And two, we've seen a lot of intervention from the CBN to actually stimulate the economy to get us moving.
Yes. How
impactful have all of those, interventions been?
Okay, I start by saying I share in the optimism that possibly by the end of the first quarter of this year, the economy, will turn the corner. Yes, I do so. The figure you mentioned was with respect to the second quarter of 2020, the 6.1 that you mentioned. At this, as of the third quarter, the end of the third quarter, we had a contraction of minus 3.62, which is a moderation of the contraction, which is a lower contraction than the one of second quarter. So it would appear that the contraction, bottomed out in the second quarter. What is likely to happen by the time the numbers now come in with respect to the fourth quarter of 2020 is that we could also have a negative growth in GDP, but that negative growth will not be as severe as we even had in the third quarter. So if you follow that trend, okay, it stands to reason, to argue that by the end of the first quarter of 2021, we are likely to, turn the corner. Turn the corner means at least, having something positive, no matter how tepid, no matter how little. Now, talking about interventions, of course, the interventions, in my view, okay, you're interested in the impact, may have also contributed to the lower rate of contraction that we had in the third quarter of 2021.
Released by CBN,
yes, interventions by both the central bank and the federal government. But of course, the interventions are still small in size compared to our GDP. Or compared to even what the challenge, the challenges are. Even the central bank governor admitted, to that by saying that of all the countries, mentioned in the communique, central bank governor mentioned, for example, the UK, okay, the US, China, and the rest of them. Okay, that's had as much as, in some cases, 66, 45%, to GDP. Ours was just 4%. Okay. Ours is just
all right.
4%.
Well, we have to go for a break. Thank you very much, Prof.